What's going on, guys and gals? Welcome to another episode of the Gamescast, the Workprint's Gamescast, brought to you by theworkprint.com. We're now on episode 59, and once again, I'm joined by the producer and my co-host, Bilal. What's up, Bilal?
Not much. And you know what? Happy belated Father's Day, Rob.
Oh, thank you so much. Happy
Yeah.
I was gonna say premature, but I don't want to use that term. Considering that you still do. But happy soon-to-be Father's Day to you.
Yeah, no, my wife got me a card. It was very nice. It had a little bear, and there's a bear in utero. So mama and baby bear. It was really cute. It's a weird thing because when Mother's Day rolled around a few weeks before, I went to her and I had the conversation. I was like, "What's the expectation for Mother's Day? Are we actually like?" Are we?
Yeah.
Are you expecting something from me? Yes or no? Because we need to figure this out because every woman is different. And so
Okay.
she's like no, but like I got her something small that she wanted that she didn't get from like a wish list. So I got her that. She got me a card, and I always love cards. And so it was good times. Your kids and a wife do anything for you?
Yes, my wife basically was like, you can do whatever you want. I had a couple friends over. We went swimming in the pool, kind of in the early afternoon. Then in the afternoon into evening, my in-laws came over, went in the pool again, had dinner, and then she just let me play video games for the rest of the night. We do have a guest this week that I want to get to and introduce, but before I do that, because you mentioned Mother's Day, it's funny. When Monica was pregnant with TJ, that Mother's Day, we hadn't known yet, right? Because the date of conception would have been like a week before. And so I took her around to my family and stuff like that. And we're celebrating Mother's Day at my grandma's. And I make the joke at dinner of, hey guys, we have something to tell you. You should be wishing Monica happy Mother's Day as well. And I did it just being a jerk and joking and stuff like that. And then it turned out that it was prophetic because she was actually pregnant at that time.
Did anyone
Uh,
believe you when you told them after the
no,
fact?
nobody. No. Oh yeah, they believed me after actually. Yeah, they. I mean, nobody believed me then and there because I had, done it with a smile. I was laughing, but that's why you can't joke about stuff. But anyway, so as I mentioned, we do have a guest joining us for the very first time in the third seat is Samir. What's up, Samir?
Hey everyone, how's everything going?
So,
Samir is actually alumni with us from the good old stomping grounds of Newark.
oh yeah, Rutgers,
Yes.
Newark.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I actually don't. Samir, I was thinking about this when I invited you onto the podcast. I was trying to remember where we first met, and for as long as I can remember, you were just there. Like I don't even know if there was an introduction for how we met. I think
Yeah.
we're just in the same place at the same time, and we just kind of knew about each other, and we're just like, yes, we're friends.
Yes, absolutely. It was Paul Robeson, the student center over there. So just congregated together, had our laptops out, and we're just like, all right,
Yeah,
Bill's a
Oh,
nerd,
because
I'm a nerd.
you both commuted, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody who mentions Paul Robeson Student Center and meeting people there, that means they commuted.
Oh, really?
So,
All
yeah.
the dormers. Why would they hang out on campus?
Exactly, right, exactly. And so, but Samir, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself besides the fact that you're an RU alum? What kind of
Sure.
games do you play? What do you do for a living?
Well, I used to be an accountant, and I hated my life, so I ended up going back to school, getting a master's in information systems, and now I'm working as a technologist for a utility company. So that's like a very vague title, but essentially what I do is I work with low code, no code applications. Um, I have a business problem, then I'll build out a solution using something like Smartsheet or Microsoft Power Apps. I've also started delving a little bit into data analytics, even though it was never my specialty, but just something good to know. So I do a little bit of dashboard creation as well. I guess on my spare time, obviously I love video games, that's why I'm here. Huge Nintendo fan growing up. Love Zelda, was really hyped about the Zelda reveal at E3. Um, but also have a PS5. Just finished Resident Evil Village. Also built a PC. But time is tight, so gotta pick and choose your games wisely now.
Yeah, it's funny. I think all three of us are kind of in that boat where, I own the Switch, I have a PS5, I have the Series X, and I've got a PC. And, you know, three of them hardly get any use, right? Like I have my daily driver, and then occasionally I have my weekend car. And
Right.
so all right, you mentioned that you played Resident Evil Village. What have you been playing lately?
I just picked up Final Fantasy VII Intermission. So just started that. Loving the new graphics update on that. Got to Forts of Condor, and I also stopped right there below.
Okay, yeah,
Um, but trying to let that experience last as long as possible, because I know it's a short DLC, maybe like 7 8 hours.
yeah. They said it's
And
about it's 2 chapters. I've seen people say they can run through it in about like 4 to 5 hours if you concentrate on story alone. Um, yeah, I mean, you play as Yuffie, who arrives in Midgard during the events of the story. I think before the plate falls.
And you're
So
playing as well, right, Blah? I don't know if you mentioned,
yeah, yeah,
or if you just went into explaining.
yeah, no, yeah. I started it up yesterday. It kind of throw you right into it. Samir, I don't know if you ran into the same issue I did, but the combat was tough. And it took me a little bit to get back into the swing of things. There's that one fight with I think it's a clone or something, and there's like the two wolves, and I died like 5 times trying to beat them.
yeah, no, I actually struggle at the same part. The battle system for Final Fantasy is, I think it's one of the best 3D fighting systems they've released. But definitely, just coming back after a year, it's just like you have to really adjust to the different settings, and how she plays as a character is completely different than Cloud. So
Yeah,
it's very technical.
yeah. Even like one of the things I've heard from a lot of people is, especially if you play it on hard, intergrade now, I guess, like the main campaign is you really need to know how to play with every character, how to get that stagger meter up on the enemies in order to beat them down and weaken them to take more damage. Yeah, but like you like each character is very unique in how they play. Did you actually get to mess around with the Fort Condor minigame?
I did. I did. I don't know. I was very apprehensive about it at first, but honestly, it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Sort of like a tower defense type game.
Yeah, and for those not in the know, in the original Final Fantasy VII, Fort Condor was this location once you got to the open world that had a weird tower defense minigame as part, but outside of like one plot point, it didn't really serve anything in terms of story significance, and so they turned Fort Condor into, I guess, a tower defense game that people play for fun in the world of Final Fantasy. I played through the entire thing on normal today. So I beat the Grandmaster. There's an achievement tied to it, or a trophy in this case, where you have to battle all the way up to the Grandmaster. It's interesting because you get like these little figures that you can buy, and they each it's rock paper scissors. There's the defense unit, there's the ranged unit, and the tech, and they show you the weapon triangle of like who's strong against who's weak against what, and it's kind of like a mini league or a Dota where you just got to take down the other person's tower, and the rounds are timed to about like 2-3 minutes, so it goes by quick.
So you guys are both kind of at the same spot in the game. How far into it is that portion? And obviously this is just the add-on. Oh, that's another question. Are you able to jump right into just that extra content?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can jump right in.
Yeah,
Okay.
at the title
How
screen.
far,
Yeah, I was just
how
saying.
far of that have you played so far?
Probably just an hour in, roughly. There's a little
Okay,
bit of story.
Yeah, because I'm just curious because I literally 2 months ago beat Final Fantasy 7 Remake for the first time. It was one of those things where, actually, I guess we're in June now. Maybe it was more than 2 months ago. But after I had gotten the PlayStation 5 and was just looking for games to play, I had rented it from GameFly, and so I had beat it on there. And so now I'm wondering if it's even worth it for me to try to get my hands on a copy again to then upgrade it to the PS5 version to then get this DLC, and if it's going to be necessary as content-wise for whatever comes next. And so I'm curious once you guys are finished that to see what you guys think, if it's even worth me going through. And by worth me going through, I mean, if it feels like it's going to have a significant impact on the story going forward. If you're just saying that, it's worth it because it's a good time and it's a fun time, thanks, but no thanks. But if you actually feel like it's going to have an impact on the story, it's not something I can't just brush up on quickly, then that's what I want to know.
I think for me, the cool thing is Yuffie was a character in the original Final Fantasy VII that you could have just completely avoided picking up. Like if you didn't, you run into her in a random encounter. If you don't answer in the right way, she doesn't join your party. And so you could play the entire game without getting her. So like the fact that they introduced her into the story as a character and built her out is really neat. So it's I forget who the writer is, but it's the Square team here. Shaping that story going forward. This is the new version of Final Fantasy VII, the story they want to tell, and I think that's really cool. It feels nice to be back in Midgar. I'll say that for sure. It looks prettier. The lighting is great. Samir, a question for you: what mode are you playing on for graphics option?
I am playing on performance mode.
Okay.
So, normally I like doing graphics actually in most games, but for this, I feel like it's a huge improvement. It makes the fighting way more smooth and responsive. And honestly, it looks great.
Yeah.
It looks good enough to me. So I think that's another big improvement, Rob, is the graphics are significantly improved. The load times are significantly improved. So you could just jump right into it. I played one of those, that chapter where you're going up Sector 5 or you're trying to infiltrate Shinra. And it was just amazing how fast it loaded and how stunning it looked in the performance mode. I've never played the original Final Fantasy VII. I've been waiting for this remake for like 15 years. I've been holding off playing the original. So I don't know what her significance will be. I'm getting hints here and there that the story may or may not be the same, but I think
they've changed things in considerable ways. They've added stuff for the better. I think if you play the original, you definitely get there's things that are very interesting. It's like seeing an adaptation, but you're like, wait, what are they doing? Oh, now I'm intrigued. It's very interesting. If you have Game Pass, I think, or I'm not sure if Final Fantasy VII is on PC Game Pass, but that version of it is. That version of it had, I think the Switch version as well has cheats. So you can like enable like random encounters, level your characters up to 99, and just kind of blitz through the story if you want. So that's a great way to just quickly re-experience that story. I say quickly, it'll still probably take you like 15, 20 hours. But, if you just don't want to do any of the grinding in between, that's another great way to experience that game.
Yeah, and just to move along, Samir, we were talking a little bit before we started this podcast, but you also have been playing the Ghost of Tsushima multiplayer, correct?
Yeah, so they had an update to that recently, a couple of months ago. I ignored it when it first came out, but then me and my friends were looking for a nice multiplayer. So Ghost of Tsushima looks beautiful on PS5, and this mode is really like fleshed out and actually very interesting. Has its own story, has its own enemies. You get to pick different classes. They each play differently. The story, it's almost like a zombie. I mean, there's different chapters, but the first one seems like it's like a zombie type story. But honestly, just really fun playing with your friends.
How far have you gotten in it so far?
I think I've beat like 3 chapters. I'm not sure how long it is so far, but probably a couple hours in.
So you guys haven't dipped into the raid yet?
Oh no, I haven't done the raid just yet.
Okay.
There's a raid in Ghost of Tsushima?
Yeah, so there's a raid in Ghost of Tsushima. The multiplayer, he mentioned the story and how fleshed out it is. It is kind of clear that this multiplayer mode wasn't some baked on like add-on, some afterthought, right? This clearly was supposed to be part of the full package, but probably because they needed more polish and a little more time, they didn't want to delay the release of the campaign. They didn't release it at launch, and which is fine because the game stands on its own 2 feet on the campaign alone. This multiplayer is much better than it had any right to be, honestly, and was one of the biggest surprises for me last year, because that's another one where when I got the PS5, after beating Astro, Sackboy's Adventure, and Miles Morales, I was looking for things to play. So went back with my friends and we started playing that. And yeah, it's a great time. And all the different classes play very differently. So you can kind of, and there's no limit as to who you go in as a group, right? It doesn't force you into 4 different roles. So if you all want to go in as archers, not the best idea, but you can, right? And so yeah, it is a very, very good multiplayer mode, and I highly recommend it for anybody who has a game, hasn't thought about it, and is even curious about dipping their toes back in.
Rob, have you done the
I
raid?
agree. I've done there's multiple parts to the raid. I've done the first part of the raid. We've been talking about getting back to it to try to finish it. The raid is very well done. It's not convoluted on the level. I would say it reminds me of a Destiny raid light.
Okay.
So it's not as convoluted. It's pretty straightforward. You figure things out. I mean, there is some like, oh guys, I figured it out moments, right? But it takes like 5 minutes. It doesn't take. It's dissimilar to a Destiny raid when those first come out, or say like a zombies mode in Call of Duty, the Easter eggs, where people are clicking random things or doing random activities that you wouldn't normally do. Most of the time in Ghost of Tsushima, when it comes to raid, if you just sit there for a second and think about what's being presented to you, you can figure out the solutions to the problems. It is very well done. It is a lot of fun. And the raids, because it's broken up into different parts, the raids aren't these huge time commitments either. And so you can kind of sit down for an hour and knock out the first part.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem with Destiny is it's not always clear what you have to do.
Yeah.
And then gathering a group of people together, and then this huge time commitment.
How many people are required for the raids in Ghost?
4.
Oh, much more manageable.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I still think the Destiny 1 raids and the early Destiny 2 raids are the benchmark, right? They're the standard for raids, in my opinion, even with them being as convoluted as they can be. Luckily, they did have a checkpointing system, right? But it's one of those things where, like, yeah, you can do this in one gaming session and you feel accomplished versus having to stretch it out either over a 4-hour sit or 2 nights, right?
Yeah.
So I do think that if I had to choose between the two, I like the way Ghost of Tsushima does it better.
Yeah,
so I highly recommend it.
I remember those late nights with Destiny.
Yeah.
You see the sun coming up, just be like, we'll get it this time.
Yeah, right. After a wipe, and you're just yelling at each other because you know that somebody messed up somebody where they didn't fulfill their role.
But you don't want to call out that person. But then you're just like, you're trying to move them with a different group of people just so it's like, maybe this will work.
Yeah, no, I called that person out. That being said, have you been playing anything else, Samir, or does that wrap it up for you lately?
I mean, that's pretty much it lately. Well, I also been playing through Pokemon Snap as well.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you guys have been check that out or not, but
I haven't yet. The problem with me with the Switch in general is that it's such a, for me, it is a handheld / console, but it's when one of those isn't getting done, then I don't think about it as much. And so especially with something like Pokemon Switch, Snap, that is something that I would want to take on the go, on flights, when I'm traveling. And I just haven't traveled much in the past 2 years, right, at this point, or a year and a half at this point. So I mean, I am interested. How do you like it so far?
I think it's great. I mean, a lot of it is nostalgia, but it's really improved on the systems, and graphically, it's probably the best looking Pokemon game on the Switch. So I don't know.
I don't know if that's saying much at the end of the day.
It's not saying much, but that's true. But if Nintendo hires these people for their mainline games, it would be very exciting because it really feels like you're in a theme park, like you're on a ride, and then just getting those different pictures. It's still fun and it still holds up 20 years later. The mechanics and the gameplay.
All right, I'll have to give that a shot. Bilal, why don't you go ahead? You already talked about playing Final Fantasy. What else have you been playing?
I'll start with the last one. So yesterday we started our first weekly stream series of Metroid. Metroid Mondays is what we're calling it. And I fired up Metroid Zero Mission, which was a Game Boy Advance game. That I actually never played through an entire Metroid game. I played portions of some over the years, and so I spent a good amount of time playing it. I'm actually really digging it. I know they call it Metroidvania, but I feel like if this is what Metroid was doing back on the NES, maybe I don't know why Castlevania gets to throw the Vania at the end.
Right. They do.
Yeah.
I saw a tweet recently where somebody was talking about how Castlevania is that person in the group project that like just adds their name at the end of the project and contributed one slide.
Yeah, because
equal credit.
Yeah, because those earlier Castlevania games were side scrollers, and like they didn't switch over to like the what I could call it like a search. Action adventure search genre, like with the map looking for upgrades and stuff like that, till much later on in the franchise. Metroid did it from the very beginning, it's a great time. Some of it I do find it a bit clunky. I avoided streaming the NES version on the Switch because it felt dated, and I honestly the updates to Zero Mission just felt a lot better. Like there's an actual map. I won't just get lost running through this wild planet. But like last night I got to this boss, which you clearly watched and enjoyed as I kept dying over and over again. And it's just like I have to jump to the right frame, fire the missile, then fire it in its mouth while dodging a bunch of bullshit. And it's not as easy as it seems with a controller in hand. But I'll get it next week on Monday.
I would have one-shotted it. I would have one-shotted it. No doubt in my mind.
Was that Kraid?
It was Kraid, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually just played it recently too. On that modded Game Boy Advance I was talking about.
Yeah.
That was actually the first game I went back to for nostalgia. That's a great entry point to the series too, because it's actually relatively short as well.
Yeah,
so,
I hear it's like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a point where you will get into
it'll be 9 for Bilal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that, and then Samir, maybe you're the right person to ask, but for Metroid 2, there was that fan remake that someone did off of Metroid Fusion. I forget what it's called, but there's that, and then there's the 3DS version. Which one would you recommend?
Oh, I haven't played the fan version just yet, but I heard that was great. But I did play through Samus Returns on 3DS. So I'd recommend that. I mean, it's going to prepare you and hype you up for Metroid Dread, which I'm really excited for.
Okay. Yeah. So the plan is to play through the main line Metroid games. So that would be Metroid Samus Returns, Super Metroid, Fusion, and then Dread. So I have my work cut out for me in the coming months. And then the last thing I played was Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, the best PS2 game on a PS5.
Okay, I think that's doing a disservice to this game because I think this game is the best PS5 game out, period. Full stop. I don't think there's a better one than this one. And so I'm also playing it, finished it this morning. I want, and I think I said this before when we were talking about Psychonauts during the E3, is I want action platformers to come back in a big way. These mascot action platformers. Especially in the vein of Ratchet and Clank, where one of the things Insomniac does better than any other studio is come up with creative weapons. And it's funny because I didn't notice that DNA in Spider-Man until I finished this game. It was like, oh, right, all those gadgets in Spider-Man, that's perfectly tailored for what Insomniac does, you know? Granted, there's a little bit of source material to work with when it comes with those gadgets, but nobody makes them feel unique and different the same way that Insomniac does. Also, this game is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, I played it in fidelity.
Did you
believe
really?
that Bilal played it. I did. Bilal played it, I believe, in
performance ray tracing.
Performance ray tracing. Now, if you're going to play it in fidelity, I highly suggest that you go into the options after you go into the game. So in the very beginning of the game, it gives you the option of selecting what mode you want. But once you're actually in the game, you can press start, go to settings, go to the video settings, turn down motion blur, turn down film grain, turn off chromatic.
Aberration,
I wish games would stop having these on by default, because they always look significantly better when you turn those off, especially motion blur. And you can actually just crank it down if you want. You don't have to turn it off completely. And so I cranked all those down to around 3, 4, 5, around that range. And of course, like I said, chromatic aberration I turned off completely. And that made a huge difference.
So I switched over to fidelity, and I'm not sure if it's these additional filters that they threw on top. But when I put it in fidelity, the game just felt like it was chugging. It didn't feel like a smooth 30. Like, I played Miles Morales in the graphical mode. I thought the performance mode felt too buttery smooth. But like, so I'm fine at playing at 4K 30, but it was just not just Ratchet and Clank. In Final Fantasy VII Intermission, I switched it over to the resolution mode, and it feels like something is broken.
So I can't speak to Final Fantasy, obviously, but I will say I didn't have that problem with Ratchet and Clank. Honestly, the way I played that game reminded me a lot of playing Returnal, where I'm not aiming down sights, I'm dashing, and it was smooth for me the whole way. And I'm usually pretty cognizant of the chug. And actually, we're going to talk about that in the game I've been playing a little bit later. But I didn't have that problem at all. And I was actually worried because we had spoke before, and you might have even tweeted it out, that normally you do prefer fidelity in a situation like this, but you had issues and it just didn't feel right to you.
Yeah.
I didn't have that happen, and maybe it is the extra filters and turning them off and stuff like that. But
yeah,
that being said, you played it in performance ray tracing, and it was still fantastic looking.
Yeah, and so it's like you can definitely see the so between fidelity. So there's 3 modes. There's fidelity, there's performance, and there's performance ray tracing. And so like as you go down from each one, like I'm sitting close to an LG C1, so like I can see like the graphical downgrade, but it's still beautiful even at its lowest resolution. The game is absolutely gorgeous. It's fun to play. Like when I say it's the best PS2 game on a PS5, it's not a dig to the work done by Insomniac in this case. It's a wonderful game. It's, I think, one of the best looking games that, we always had that standard of like Toy Story or something like that. And like this Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is a movie. It's a TV series come to life. The characters are great. Weirdly, the end of this game reminded me a lot of Avengers Endgame. Even some of the scenes of it, I was like, this is very similar in some ways. But it was a good time. I just think the actual gameplay experience felt a bit hollow to me. Like maybe it's the normal difficulty, or maybe it's the dodge mechanic. Like it wasn't too hard. On normal, it was pretty much a breeze. Maybe if I bump up the difficulty, I'll have a better time, or find it more challenging.
I will say I do agree that it's not the most difficult game, but I'm also, for me, the fun in Ratchet and Clank in particular is experimenting with the different weapons, is leveling them up, and so I don't need this game to be difficult. Honestly, most of my deaths came from platforming, me rushing things. Yeah. Right. And so, but I do agree that this isn't a difficult game on the normal setting at all. I mean, most people will be able to breeze right through it. That being said, I appreciate that as well, because it was one of those things where it wasn't that long. I mean, it was longer actually than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. How long did it take you to wrap up?
I don't know. I didn't look at my play. If I had to guess off the top of my head, somewhere between 11 and 13 hours probably. I did not platinum it. You did platinum it.
Yeah, and so credit to this game. It's I had a blast. I enjoyed the weapons. It's like you said. And I think this is where some of my concern comes from. Like, they give you a ton of weapons. All of them are very
Yeah.
different and they're fun to play with. Like, there's battles where you've run out of ammo with like 90% of your weapons. You're just cycling
Yeah.
through and trying to get
Yeah.
through. And like, it's fun. Like, I enjoyed like sitting there leveling up. I had my favorites. I loved using like the glove of doom to like throw these little minions that go around doing melee attacks and throwing the Mr. Fungi. And then it was just like I had a bunch of AoE damage around me, and I could just run around and just like concentrate on what I wanted to, while my little minions did whatever they wanted. It's cool like that, but like I think what I wish it did was I wish there was more strategy around maybe like certain enemies were weak against certain type of gunplay, or like maybe use the
Yeah,
weapons
there
in a
was
more
a
strategic way.
Sure, there was a
Yeah.
little bit of that when you faced enemies who had shields.
Yeah.
It made more sense to say use like the ricochet
Hmm.
or a weapon that didn't do direct damage, so you get around those shields. But yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but other than that, like one thing I do want to call out is Sony's Remote Play app on iOS. It's magical. I've said this before. I'll say it again. My sister-in-law had a baby girl. We went to go visit over the weekend. I brought my backbone with me. Popped my phone in, and I played two main chapters of like the two planets off that backbone. Zero latency of any kind. Was able to run through some of the most hectic scenes. It was a great on-the-go game for that use. So. I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see another Ratchet and Clank. I think the new characters they introduce are great with Rift, Kit. Rivet? Yeah, Rivet. Sorry,
Thank- yeah.
was Glitch a new character?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay,
And she's maybe the best new character. I mean,
yeah,
I loved Rivet. I loved Kit. I loved Glitch. One of the things I wanted to add on, and I was waiting for you to finish, is that I think the voice cast is fantastic, and the additions actually tend to outshine even Ratchet and Clank at times.
yeah, and even some of the characters, the alternate characters they introduce,
Yes,
are really well done.
yes, I agree, 100%. I think that the performances in this game and the animation in this game is better than any other first-party studio that Sony has, and I'm more than willing to put it out there that Insomniac is the best studio that Sony owns under their umbrella, and it's not even close.
Damn.
Anyway.
Lucky for you, there's no Naughty Dog fans, but that does it for me for this week.
Okay, so besides that, what I've been getting into is, again, I'm playing Dead by Daylight. I talked about this before, kind of just got back into it the past couple months, and what got me excited the most was playing Resident Evil Village, and then knowing that Dead by Daylight was getting this Resident Evil chapter. And so I picked up that chapter. It includes Nemesis, it includes Leon and Jill as playable survivors. And then what was a bit of a surprise to me, and maybe I just didn't see this, is they released cosmetics for Leon and Jill that make them look like Chris and Claire. So you can actually have a full 4-man squad of Chris, Claire, Jill, and Leon. The one thing, though, with this chapter is it also introduced a new map, and it's the police station from Raccoon City. They had some problems where it was causing crashes, so that's been disabled. So I actually haven't gotten a chance to play on that map yet, but I think this is one of the best chapters they've done. The characters, both of their perks are a lot of fun. Nemesis, at first, felt like he was too strong. He felt like he was too fast, and the addition of these AI zombies that also interfere with what you're trying to do and help him out felt a little too strong. But just like any other killer when they're released, the more I've played, the more I've learned to kind of how to deal with him. You can tell that when Dead by Daylight introduces these established IPs into the game and bring them on as guest characters and guest survivors, that they treat it with care. There's a lot of attention to detail. There's a lot of love put into these DLC packs. And I'll continue to kind of trumpet the fact that more people should be playing this game, and they have crossplay, and just by the nature of the game, it's one of those things where crossplay works. Nobody has a distinct advantage. I actually think that in this regard, there are some things that controller players have an advantage. I think it's much easier to kind of look around when you're playing as a survivor and kind of juke the killer, having the thumbsticks and having the simple controls. And that's another thing, is that this game is really just a 3-button game. And so it's super easy to pick up, but there's a large skill gap, right, in the very best and those who are just starting out. I highly recommend it. It is on Game Pass if anybody wants to try out. And I've been talking to Bilal. One of the things that I want to do to stream on this channel is I kind of want to start streaming some horror games and just give me an excuse to kind of stream Dead by Daylight, since I'm playing it as much as I am anyway. And so, yeah, that's one of the things I've been playing. The other thing I've been playing that I want to talk about is Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance.
You started it without me?
Now,
ouch.
The funny thing is I was going to text you early this morning when I was going to give this a shot, because I wanted to be able to talk about it. But because you're such a night owl, I figured it was the middle of the day that you'd be busy with, work and stuff. So I didn't want to bother you.
It was a busy work day.
That being said, I booted it up. It is available came out last night at midnight, or this morning at midnight, however you want to look at it. It's on Game Pass. I had already pre-installed it. And yesterday evening, I think, IGN drops their review, and they give it a 4 out of 10.
Yikes.
And so already I'm a little bit... my expectations have been tempered.
You let the establishment get to you, man. You let the establishment get to you.
Now, I will say I did go and read through the review. I didn't just look at the score. And so some of the complaints they had are the things that kind of made me bring my expectations down. I went in and I played, and one of the things they said is not to play it by yourself. Play this co-op. So I played with my buddy Matt, and we had a public lobby, so one random joined us as well. We played through one level, and I played as the assassin class. There are 4 classes. There's the assassin, the ranger, the tank, and the just kind of base soldier type class, right? There are things here. So I think when you're doing a combo, I think the combat, at least for the assassin, was very satisfying. The character designs are what you want out of a Dungeons and Dragons type game. The goblins look like what kids picture goblins look like. And so for me, I enjoyed that. I enjoy the character design. I kind of enjoy the level layout. And I enjoy these kind of dungeon crawler action brawlers. Your Marvel's Avengers, stuff like that. This is also a looter game, right? So you're getting loot as you progress. The one thing that bothers me, though, is that unless I just couldn't figure out, it doesn't seem like you can actually equip the loot that you pick up. Because what it does is you pick up, it'll say common helm, rare helm, common armor, epic armor. Then it doesn't actually reveal what that piece is until you're out. And so of the level. So you have this little hub world, and you go and you put on new armor and equipment. And so that kind of bums me out, because when I get it, I kind of want to see what it is right there, put it on right then and there. We talked about games chugging earlier, and this game, it's not egregious in its chugging and its frame rate issues, but you can feel it, right? Anytime there's more than 1 or 2 enemies around, you can kind of feel almost like an input lag in some of your commands. And then the lock-on system that they have doesn't work very well, honestly. It's kind of hard to even see when you are locked on for some reason. It just feels like this game needs 4 or 5 more months of polish, honestly, and that there could be something here. It just doesn't feel all that great. I mean, janky is probably the best word to describe what it felt like when we were in these combat situations. The other thing is I think one of the complaints was there seems to be a little bit of a balance issue. I was going in and through most of the level, I'm fighting these little goblins and I'm destroying them. I mean, they're not doing any damage. And then I'd get to a bigger enemy and they would almost one-shot me oftentimes. So I do think that there is a little bit of a balance issue when it comes to the enemy types and stuff like that. I can also, like I said, I only played one level. I could see this becoming repetitive in the way that the combat works. Oh, also the AI is dumb as dirt.
How's the how are the character abilities? Are there
So,
character
like I said,
abilities?
yes, there are. So
Okay.
each character class starts off with base ability. So the assassin, for example, they have like an ultimate ability, like any game in 2021. As you're dealing damage, you're building up the ultimate meter, and then you click the two thumbsticks on controller to activate that ability. For the assassin, it is like a spectral wolf that you call forth. And so that was cool. I mean, it's one of those things where it's still early. I was only level 1, so it felt strong, but it didn't feel overly strong. Now, there are skill points, there are things that you can level up in the game, so I anticipate it getting stronger. Your base abilities that you start with, and I believe you can switch them out as you unlock things. With the assassin, there's what they call blink, but it's just an invisibility. And then there is basically like, I can't remember what they call it, but it's like a blade dance, where you're being surrounded by blades and doing AoE damage that way. I thought the abilities were strong and fun, but because of the way the combat feels, blade dance in particular doesn't feel like there's any actual impact when you're doing it. And so that's kind of a bummer. It just kind of feels like it's a passive aura. And so I do think that, like I said, I think with some polish, this game could be a good time, could be fun. But it is very much a B tier game, right? Or a single A, maybe double A game. This isn't a triple A polish. And it's unfortunate because you see this with Dungeons and Dragons now, but you also see it with the Warhammer license. They are just pumping these games out, and none of them to this day, although Vermintide actually isn't that bad, but for the most part, there's way more hits, way more misses than there are hits, and it does kind of seem like the polish isn't being put into these games. And so, like I said, it's on Game Pass if you want to go ahead and give it a try, you want to play with friends. I do think there is some fun to be had there, but I would not recommend anybody going out and spending their money on this game right now.
I've heard I heard it's also on PC Game Pass, but there's no cross-play between Xbox and PC. And so that's also kind of disappointing that in 2021 that's an issue. But what about the level length? You said you could see it getting repetitive. Like, how long was that first level for you guys?
I think the first level was somewhere around 25 minutes.
Okay.
30 minutes maybe. So it didn't overstay its welcome as far as the first level is concerned, I would say. And in the very beginning, they do tell you, I believe in the tutorial, it tells you like how many missions there are. I unfortunately don't remember off the top of my head, but it does seem like there is some length there in this game. If I had to guess, just based on that first level, it's probably, a 9-hour game, 10-hour game. So again, it's not the longest game, but we talked about this before. That's kind of the sweet spot for me. I think around 10 hours is kind of the sweet spot these days for me. And it is a looter game, so there is some replayability. I have to imagine also that as it goes up, and like I said, I only played one level, so I'm assuming here, but I would assume that there is going to be a little bit of grinding at some point just to balance it out. I can't imagine the type of game this is, you being able to just play through level after level without having to make sure that you get the appropriate loot for each level. Now, I will probably play this again at some point, but if it continues to be as janky as it is now, I don't see myself playing it for much longer or putting any significant amount of time in it, really. Especially since we talked about this last week, with all the news that coming out of E3, we're not hurting for games basically from this point forward. there's going to be plenty out, and there's already plenty out right now.
Yeah, I think
So,
we're planning. I think what's this week? This Friday is the 25th, and we've got 2 major releases, or 3 if you count Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 on the Switch. You got the release of Scarlet Nexus on
Yeah.
PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, and PC, and you also got Mario Golf Super Rush on the Switch, which we are working on a stream for. There's got to be something we're planning for at the end of this, but I think we might do a 4-player stream, battle golf, maybe regular golf, get some friends in. It should be a fun time.
like I said, it is on Game Pass, so if you did want to give it a shot and you have Game Pass, there's nothing to lose there. And hopefully this game does get supported and it does get polished. I think this is why Game Pass, one of the reasons Game Pass is so good, right? Like, obviously everything that comes in there, comes into the program isn't a banger, right? It's not a 90, it's not an A, it's not a B. You know, you are getting some C's, you are getting some stinkers. But this is the type of game where, just because I saw some flaws in it, I think this is the type of game that somebody could find it and have a good time. And so, you know, like I said, I will probably report back in again on this game after giving it a little bit more time. But I did want to give my initial impressions just because it did come out today. And, you know, I can't in good conscience recommend anybody go out and spend money on it.
Do you think it uses the D&D license well, or like,
Well,
if you're a fan of the franchise, is it?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I can't speak to that because although I've recently developed a want to get into D&D, especially since kind of started as me getting into boutique board games and then starting to go down that path, and now I'm at the point where I do want to do something D&D related, and I actually want to try my hand at DMing. And so, but I can't speak to it just because I don't have that knowledge. My understanding is that, based on some of the reviews, now I did read other reviews outside of IGN's, and they seem to be all over the place, with the highest being somewhere around an 80 and the lowest being the IGN one at a 4. And so, which would be a 40 on that scale if we're talking 100-point scale. And I did see some reviews where they said that the license and the stuff you expect out of D&D is there. And so I will say that the opening cinematic lore that they presented seemed nerdy as hell. And so maybe if you are a big fan, maybe this is for you, right? Maybe you can overlook some of the complaints that I had. Well, that wraps up what we've been playing. Let's go ahead and get into the news. We actually have a decent amount of stories to talk about, but I think a lot of these are going to be us mentioning it and moving on.
Yeah, some of them are really quick stories here.
Yeah, so the first one I want to talk about is actually, this came out today, correct? This
Yes.
post went up?
Oh,
Yeah,
let
so
me
I saw
switch it
this
over.
earlier. Yeah, so Xbox put out news that the Design for Xbox program that they started talking about leading up to the release of the Series X now includes monitors. Specifically, in the headline right here says, introducing new design for Xbox monitors, unlocking the true power of HDMI 2.1 on Xbox Series X and S. So basically what it is, this whole Design for Xbox program is more or less a little guarantee that, hey, this was made with features intended for the Xbox. We have either tested it or trust our partners and worked with them closely so that it will bring out what you need in for the Xbox.
I really wish this article had dropped maybe 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
You bought a TV?
So my main TV in our living room is an LG C9. It's the OLED. It had the HDMI 2.1 ports, and I was using that. But the problem tends to be that my wife uses the TV at night, and I can't sit there and play games all the time. So most of the time I'll be gaming in the middle of the night. But I wanted something for the office, and because of the baby room being constructed, we cut my desk. I had 2 monitors, and she's like, "Oh, why don't you get like a big ultra wide?" Now, if I was gonna get something, I have a 4K 60 HDR monitor from Acer. It's the Predator, that I've been using. It doesn't have a 2.1 port on it, so it doesn't come with like the variable refresh rate. It'll do HDR, but it won't do 120 hertz, even though the monitor can do 144 hertz with a PC. So I tried to look for something that could stand in the way, but there weren't any 2.1 monitors. So I ended up just getting a 48-inch LG C1, which is this year's model. I'm popped at like the light shining at me right now is literally a giant 48-inch TV screen. And so I'm using that. And the thing is, monitors are expensive. Like, if I scroll down, you'll see some of the cost of these things. Like, this is a Philips 55-inch, which is a TV. Great.
Yeah,
That
actually,
yeah.
let me just go over them actually
Yeah.
quickly. So the ones that they showed off, and obviously these are just some. There are more that will be part of this program, but the ones they showed off is the Philips Momentum, a 55-inch, which actually has a sound bar built into it.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, and so this is retailing for $1,599.99 starting this summer.
And it's
One of the things
HDR
one of the things you see
1000.
here. Yes, and so one of the things you're gonna see is that this is the price range we're looking at for these monitors and these TVs. The next one they showed off is the Asus Strix Xbox Edition gaming monitor. That one actually doesn't have a price yet, but again, all of these do 4K at 120 hertz with HDMI 2.1. They support AMD FreeSync, which is S, and the Series X support FreeSync as well as VRR.
I believe the PS5 also does FreeSync. I'd have to look that up, but I think
I thought that it doesn't support it yet, that it's supposed to support it, but that's not actually enabled. Now, I could be wrong.
I'll check that out if you want to. Oh, wait,
Yeah.
I am controlling the screen, so never mind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the other thing they mentioned was the Acer Xbox Edition gaming monitor. This is a 28-inch monitor. This one is $949.99, so $950 US dollars. This is the one out of all of them that interests me the most, because you were talking about looking at monitors and monitors not having the HDMI 2.1, at least most, and it being a fairly newer standard.
None of them, have 2.1. So this is like the first. This one, along with the Asus up top, are like the first ones I'm seeing.
And so this one again supports 4K at 120 hertz. Now this one doesn't have as bright of an HDR color gamut, and so again, the brights just aren't going to be as bright as what you would get on the Philips TV that we mentioned. That being said, I've been looking at upgrading one of my monitors because I actually have a 4K HDR main monitor, and that's what I've been using to play the games when I stream for the channel. I want to upgrade the other one because I do want to get. I was looking at just getting something that could do 1440p at 120 hertz, but they're all priced close to this, and they don't even support some of the features that this supports, and this one being a 4K at 120 hertz. And so this is very tempting for me, although still a bit on the pricey side, especially when you consider that you can get a 40-inch, 48-inch, not the C1 that you got.
The CX C10, yeah.
Yeah. For not much more than this.
And like even like if you're not trying to get like this year's models for like the LG OLEDs or even some of the other TVs that support HDMI 2.1, you can get them for around $1,000, and like that's where like the monitor stuff gets a bit difficult because it's pricey.
So one of the companies that I highly recommend whenever someone asks me for my advice when it comes to purchasing a new TV for the home, especially when it comes to gaming, is you can get a TCL 6 series, which actually does support HDMI 2.1, VRR. You can get a 65-inch for not much more than what this costs. And so actually the problem is getting a screen this small with the features that this one has. And that's actually where the dilemma runs. And that's why you see such high prices at screens this small. That being said, I think it was LG who recently announced at CES that they are working on finally having OLED um, screens and displays, and Samsung's also working on that for monitors and to have it in the smaller sizes. So this is just the beginning. I mean, we're going to see more and more monitors and smaller screens supporting these features. They also showed off an HDMI cable that is certified. It is 32.8 feet and it's $64.99. Now, $64.99 is a ton of money for
Yes.
an HDMI cable. You can go on Amazon. What's interesting here is the length of the cable, because this is the longest certified cable to actually be able to support the 4K at full 120 hertz over HDMI at this length.
I can tell you when I was ordering HDMI cables, 2.1 cables, that it was a nightmare reading through reviews trying to figure out exactly what I needed to get it set up. 65 is pricey, so I'm hoping that price comes down as competitors step into the market. But but if your setup requires a 32 or 33 foot cable, I mean, it's there, and it's nice to have that option.
I mean, this particular cable isn't for most people.
Yeah.
But that being said, hopefully we get some different sizes still having this designed for Xbox being part of this program. So we do get that certification. I mean, the cable they included with the Series X is rated and certified for HDMI 2.1. So, I mean, for most people, this isn't going to be a necessity unless you do need something of this length. Now, let me get our
next story.
Okay, so this is another one since we're here in Microsoft land.
Just as a heads up, the stories are in no rhyme or reason. I just kind of throw them into a sheet, so don't expect it to be in some sort of chronological or recent news order. But let me talk about this one. So today I was browsing through Etc. And I saw a forum post come up that somebody was playing Rainbow Six Siege on the Xbox cloud gaming, and they realized that if they went to settings, there was options to play like at 120 hertz, like stuff you'll see on the Series X. And so what quickly came out was that cloud gaming, those blades came early. Like Microsoft last week said, give them in a few weeks they'll be coming out to be upgrading those cloud gaming servers, and it turns out it was just a couple of days for it to roll out. So I've seen people talk about Siege, Gears of War, Hivebusters, Sea of Thieves, Yakuza Like a Dragon, all those with options that you would normally see on the Series X. And so this was one of the first tweets from Clobril over on Twitter. Just proof of Rainbow Six Siege running on Nextcloud with 120 frames per second option. Same thing with Yakuza Like a Dragon. Really neat story. I'm glad to see this happen. One of the things I didn't get to mention during Ratchet and Clank is these new consoles, the load times are non-existent. I know, Samir, you mentioned it in Final Fantasy Intergrade. Like Ratchet and Clank, you boot that game up cold, and you're at the main menu in 2 seconds, and you're right in it as soon as you load. And my problem with cloud gaming, because it was using I think the 1S as its core before, the load times were atrocious. I would sit there and I'd just be like, what am I doing? It's almost become unconscious. It just slowly crept that I don't expect load times anymore, and it's crazy because I've been so accustomed to them for so many years. But this new generation of gaming with the SSDs, it's nice to have these super fast speeds. And so I have yet to test it out. Maybe I'll test it out this week and talk about it more next week. But that was one of my biggest complaints with cloud gaming, and so hopefully this fixes a lot of that and some of the issues I ran across.
Is that a subscription, or what? How do you?
So if you have Game Pass Ultimate, I think it's Ultimate. You have access.
Game Pass Ultimate.
Yeah, so you can just go. So actually, if I do this right now, If I go xbox.com
So what it
slash
does is
play.
Game Pass Ultimate includes
Yeah.
Game Pass for console, Game Pass for PC. It includes EA Play, right? That's what it's called. EA
Yeah.
Play, and it also includes their cloud streaming. And they build the cloud streaming as just an additive feature. So unlike those other three, which you could get out separately, this is the only way to get the cloud streaming, and it works. When
Yeah.
it works really, really well. The downside being, yes, because it was on those older blades, the load times are the thing that really got me, you know. And so just seeing an improvement in that, we're gonna see improvements in resolution, you know, in fidelity, in frame rates, but load times are the ones that actually impacts
So let's just
on
do
a
this.
day.
Like we can literally just
Yes.
fire this up. As quick test.
Especially when it comes to this cloud gaming, because I'm sure you're the same as me, Bilal. I don't expect it to be the same thing as playing on my console, you know,
Yeah.
having it there locally and natively. But it's still very good, right? And so the one thing I can forgive a little bit of buffering and stuff like that here. The one thing that always makes me not want to play it is the load time. So if they can kind of trim those down, I mean, it's a game changer.
Yeah, so I mean, I have my Elite controller synced up. It's loading in. You know, it's didn't have to install anything, which is like also nice. Just being able to jump in and seeing what it's capable of doing. Yeah, it's a really neat thing. Samir, have you tried any cloud gaming options?
Trial for Google Stadia, and that wasn't that bad, but their selection of games just wasn't too exciting
Right.
for me, except maybe Destiny, but Destiny I already had a copy of. So, I mean,
And
that was running pretty well, but I didn't try like a heavy game, like a first-person shooter or something like that. That would really test the limits.
Yeah, and listen, I'll say it again. The best part about the cloud streaming, the Xbox cloud streaming, is that it is additive, right? There was something about I have a Chromecast Ultra and the Stadia controller. There was something about either having to pay for the subscription for Pro or having to buy the games separately and knowing that it wasn't going to be it's the same price as buying for my console and it's not going to be as good because there are going to be times when it buffers and the resolution on Stadia wasn't 4K even though they had advertised that the Pro members would get it at 4K. They weren't doing that at launch when I was trying it out. And so it being additive, and you can see Bilal going through it right now. And listen, you saw how quick this booted up.
And there's
and
like
was ready to
there's
go.
zero latency on any of this. This is
Yeah.
actually pretty amazing. You know,
like I said,
and it pulled my Xbox and PC save. Like
Yes.
that's the
Yep.
crazy part. Like this is my end game. Like everyone's at level 99. I've gotten every achievement. It's pulled. It's pulled all of it. So like you know, it's all right here.
So,
And
since we're
it's flawless. Like and it's cool because seeing these options here. So I think is there a graphical option here? I'm not sure where it is. Maybe it's not in this version, but graphics option, normal, high resolution. So if I go back, now I think it'll be a little bit choppier, but definitely improvement on. Yeah, it's not as smooth for 60 frames, but it is. It looks better. It's running just fine. Yeah,
since we're talking about cloud games and cloud streaming anyway, I'm just going into the next bit of news. Xbox hires Portal dev Kim Swift to make cloud games.
Oh yeah, right here we go.
So, the company's Xbox division announced today that it's hired former Stadia game design director Kim Swift to oversee cloud gaming collaborations with independent studios. Again, they talked about this before E3 when they got that news out about having apps built in, installed on TVs, and working with TV manufacturers to kind of have the cloud streaming built in, releasing their own media stick in the vein of a Fire TV stick or a Roku device. They are going all in on, and I said this during the E3, they are more or less a services company that now has different hardware options for you to experience their services. And their service is Xbox Game Pass. You know, yes, they allow other games and stuff, but that's the selling point for them. And so cloud streaming being a part of that and just allowing them to reach out to an even larger market where mobile gaming is more popular, where the infrastructure is there for, you know, cellular more so than it is on many parts of the US. It's a smart decision for them to invest in something like this and to try to future-proof themselves, right? What was I going to say? There is one of the studios that they are reportedly or rumored to be working with is actually Kojima Productions. And so that just shows you just how serious they're taking cloud gaming. And it's funny because Kim Swift is like the only person from the Portal team whose name I know and recognize. And she had left Valve and had released another kind of like puzzle game on the Xbox 360 arcade, I believe it was. Quantum something or another.
Quantum... Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Huh.
It always
Conundrum.
in my head,
Quantum Conundrum.
Yeah. I always remember being super excited to play that game because it was from somebody who worked on Portal. And then playing it and being like, okay, this is fine, but it's just not Portal level. Anyway, sticking with Xbox, the biggest news for me this week and the one I'm most excited about is the Xbox Design Lab is back. You can go in there and customize your Xbox Series controllers with custom colors. This thing, even if you don't buy anything, this thing is so much fun to mess around with. I told my friends in our Discord group, the group of friends that I play games with, when this went live and sent them the link, and our Discord was just flooded with people coming up with their own custom creations and their own riffs on what a Black Panther controller would look like, what an Iron Man controller. I designed a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles controller, which was base green, and then different parts of the controller had purple, orange, red, and blue to represent different turtles. And my favorite part about all this is when Microsoft releases one of their limited like color controllers, so the Shock Blue or the Electric Volt yellow green that they released recently, they price those at $64.99. To go in and customize your own controller here, you can customize the front, the back, the bumpers, the triggers, the thumbsticks, and the D-pad. You can select from a variety of colors. And then they have different options for the buttons, the face buttons, including the share, start, select, or view menu, I think is what they call them on the Xbox controllers. If you don't add any engravings, it is $69.99. So they only charge a $5 premium to go in there and make this custom controller the way you want it. And you can get it engraved, I think, for another $5 or so, depending on how long the engraving is.
Yeah. You
go to websites like Colorware or any of these other ones that do custom stuff, and they're charging you $120.
That's double the price.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly. The fact that they only charge a $5 premium and you can go in there and customize your own controller, honestly, if you're in the market for a new Xbox controller, this is the way to go, you know? Have either of you messed around with it at all? I know, Samir, you don't have an Xbox right now, so...
But I do need an Xbox controller for the PC, so...
Okay.
I have messed around with it, but haven't pulled the trigger on any specific color combination just yet. I like the gray and the blue, and then going crazy with the colors on the triggers. So, but not sure yet what's gonna work.
What about you, Bilal? Did you mess around with this at all?
I did. So I actually ordered one in the past before the program shut down for my cousin as a present when he got his Xbox One X. So we got him a controller made so him and his brother could play together. We got his gamer tag put on it. And then when this one launched, I start messing around with creating a work print one because I kind of want to do a giveaway for like a work print themed one. I think I shared a picture with you, but I don't want to mess with Discord. I might mess up the video feed. But yeah, no, it's a really cool system. It's nice and easy to use. You can go in, you can customize the color of the thumbsticks, the D-pad, the pause menu share button, the face buttons, the shoulders, the triggers, and the back and front plate. And there's a
This is
lot you can make.
this is 2 weeks in a row
Yeah.
that Bilal has repeated exactly what I said 45 seconds after I said it. That's how you know that he's too busy producing and trying to get this going on, that he's only passively listening to what I say.
I passively listen even when I'm not producing.
Oh, gosh. But yes, no, it is. I mean, just go in there, mess around. It's a lot of fun just to see what you can come up with. I mean, some of my friends were coming up with a Buzz Lightyear style controller. Like, there really is a ton of possibilities. And it is the updated controller, which is nice because it will also have the Bluetooth capabilities to use on PC or use on mobile, and it'll have that share button built in. I also have a custom controller from the last time when the program was open, when it was the Xbox One controllers, and they also had a partnership deal at the time with NFL, so you can get the logo for your favorite NFL team. So I actually got a Philadelphia Eagles one that had my gamer tag engraved at the bottom, and so I was already a huge proponent of the program. And it is something you mentioned, Bilal, that you made one as a gift for somebody. This is something that in the future, when someone's birthday or a celebration comes up and I need to get a gift and I know they play, this is kind of my go-to gift from here on out.
Absolutely. It's a great gift idea.
All right, that kind of wraps up all of the Xbox news. Bilal, do you want to go ahead and start getting into some of the many Final Fantasy stories?
There's 2 Final Fantasy stories.
Hey, more than one Final Fantasy story is many Final Fantasy stories, in my opinion.
So I brought in the second one because of the first one. So the first one is Cyber Group, a Paris-based studio, is co-developing and producing, along with Square Enix, an adaptation of Final Fantasy IX targeted at kids between 8 to 13 years old. So, this is perfect for all the adults out there.
Right.
And, it's going to be the 40-year-olds that are screaming about how they weren't true to the story. And it's interesting because Final Fantasy IX has the most animated. I think it's the most animated Final Fantasy from the PlayStation era. I know a lot of people complained about it at first, saying it was a bit too kiddie, but I think it had a lot of character and a pretty dark story to go with it. I think it's really cool that they're doing something with the. We see more and more studios doing stuff with television. We have Ubisoft partnering with Netflix for, what did we say? It was a Splinter Cell series. There's a Blood Dragon series coming out. Castlevania has been huge already over at Netflix, and that's getting a spin-off with the Belmonts. Have you checked out any of the animated TV game stuff?
Yeah, I really liked Castlevania. Just finished that. So I thought that was a great adaptation.
How was that final season? I've heard things where people are like, it's a bit slow, but it gets there at the end.
I mean, the action and everything about that is amazing. The story, for me, peaked at the end of Season 2, and this sort of felt like an afterthought, but some of the side characters get great endings. So if you like, like Isaac and Hector and some of the vampires, if you like their story, then they get great endings. And then the final fight was just amazing. So did I feel like the season was necessary? Not really, but was it still a fun ride? Absolutely.
That's awesome. I know Christian, who writes for the site, has been pumped for that. I was talking to him about that spinoff, so I'm curious how that all works out. I know Adi Shankar, who I believe he's the showrunner for Castlevania. He's also doing the Devil May Cry series as well. So curious to see how that turns out, because Devil May Cry can go to some wacky places. In the same vein as keeping with Final Fantasy IX, there's a cool fan project I wanted to highlight. It's called the Final Fantasy IX Memoria project, and it's a reimagining of the game using the Unreal Engine, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. Like, there's a tweet with a bunch of images that I want to pull up really quick. They put out a few of these. Nope, that's not it. But I'll just show this one. But this is what they're going for with the style. Honestly, it feels like what the animated series would look like. I usually don't follow fan projects too closely. because most of them are Nintendo related, and then we always get that Nintendo cease and desist,
Shut down. Yeah.
and then it's always heartbreaking. But like I had to find a series of tweets. I thought it was part of this article, but I guess it's not the case. Oh, where did I jump? But like the work they've done just in 3 months with like this image alone is absolutely stunning, and like they're updating the character models as well. Oh yeah, here we go. The 3 month progress. Didn't scroll down far enough. So this is the image on the left is what they did 3 months ago. On the right is like what how far they've come, and it's just like it's really cool to see the work and the fan effort that goes in. It's like what you said with Final Fantasy VII. That game is over 20 years old, I think now, and it's just like we're gonna reach a point where we can't expect people or kids to go back and play those games. I have a hard time going back and playing some of those games now, and so it's just like seeing either fans reboot some of these projects or even studios that go back and remaster them. It's nice to see a new way to experience it, and then they can go back and get that treatment they deserved in the long run. And that does it for the Final Fantasy section. Thanks for joining us again, Rob.
Hey, listen, I don't, Final Fantasy VII Remake is the first Final Fantasy game that I've played through completion. It might be the first one that I've ever even started, if I'm 100% honest. So I just don't have much to contribute. I don't have that nostalgia or fandom. And while I enjoyed Final Fantasy VII Remake, I wasn't enamored by it. I'm not looking to get into a deep dive. So I just don't have much to say on that. So that's why I'll let you handle that. All right, I'm going to try to run through some of these other stories quickly, and then we'll get into some that I think we can talk a little bit more about. So first one is Pokemon Go creator Niantic announced that they are taking on Transformers next. Transformers Heavy Metal is coming to mobile in 2021. Now,
I'm angry about this one.
Either of you have any interest? You're angry about it?
Yeah, can I tell you why?
Okay. Yes, sure.
The combat is turn-based.
No way.
Yeah, it's turn-based combat, and Pokemon Go has you tapping on the screen.
Well, listen, you have to expect that they've learned lessons, right, from Pokemon Go.
Listen,
I feel like
turn-based should come to Pokemon Go first, and then they can do Transformers.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
I feel like Nintendo purposely sabotaged the fighting system in Pokemon Go just to make it different from the mainline games. Because they already, like, why, what's the statement? Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And that game pulls in so much money on the App Store already, so.
Yeah. I'm not in love with these screenshots or these character designs. Obviously, this isn't a game targeted towards me anyway, so I'm not upset that they went turn-based.
So what's the story on this? They team up with, you join a group known as the Guardian Network and team up with the Autobots to challenge the Decepticons. Players will uncover hidden regions across Earth to find resources and battle Decepticons in turn-based battles. Okay.
Here's the problem.
Yeah.
What they should do is, just like you can pick teams in Pokemon Go, let me pick if I want to be a Decepticon or an Autobot. Don't make me be an Autobot. Let me be a Decepticon. That's what I would pick. Anyway, let's move on to the next story. I can't remember if I talked about this on the podcast or not, but I actually played through what was once an Xbox exclusive, the Medium, and liked it quite a bit. I like Bloober Team. They also did that Blair Witch game for Xbox. They did Layers of Fear. And I think that the games very much feel like smaller indie games, but they are well done, and they all have a level of tension and stress, that kind of horror feel, right? More than, say, jump scares or anything like that. And I found the Medium very interesting, and the story they told made me want more of this. And so it's been announced that the game is now coming to PlayStation 5. Bloober Team announced Tuesday that the game will be coming, and it's coming September 3rd on PlayStation 5, with a physical version on the way for PlayStation 5, Windows PC, and Xbox Series X. Now, this game is available on Game Pass, so if you do have an Xbox and you want to give it a shot, I highly recommend giving it a try. I think to beat the entire game, it took me 5 hours, 6 hours, and that's kind
Really?
of the range of the games. Yeah, that's kind of the range of the games that they release. I mean, the Blair Witch game was
I
around
was
the same
about
time.
to ask you that. Yeah, do you finish the Blair Witch game?
Yes, I did finish the Blair Witch game. The Blair Witch game was the last game I played that after I beat it, I kept thinking about it for days after. I had to go in and like look more into the game, and it also has some alternate endings. So I looked into what those alternate endings are. If you like those tense horror games where it's not combat focused like Resident Evil. It's more about walking through the environment, and there are some light puzzle solving and some light combat, we'll say. If you're interested into those type of games or into horror at all, and especially if you have Game Pass, give this game a try. I enjoyed my time with it. I thought the mechanic of basically going between the living realm and what's like the spirit realm is very, very interesting. And so they had advertised a lot of the whole like split screen dual reality aspect of that, but that's only a small portion of the game. You're really just going between the two, not necessarily the two of them at the same time. But it is still very, very cool, and I recommend it.
Yeah, and it seems like from the trailer they're also teasing a DualSense integration for this game.
Right.
So
Which would make sense. I don't want to give anything away, but
Yeah.
there is some very like there's some gross stuff they could do with that DualSense controller, honestly.
Oh,
They
God.
integrated it. So, moving on, FIFA Ultimate Team has announced that now they will actually show you the contents of the pack before you buy it. And so I'm trying to think what else started doing this. Oh, it was Fortnite. Fortnite in their Save the World portion of the game, which is the cooperative survival aspect of that game. They had loot llamas to start off, where they were basically blind boxes. They made a switch about a year and a half ago to telling you actually what the contents are in the pack itself. And so here, FIFA 21 Ultimate Team players may now preview the specific contents of each pack of cards sold in EA Sports' extremely lucrative but heavily criticized mode. I think more companies should be doing this. Now, the catch here is that if you don't like what you have, then you have to wait 24 hours before you can preview another pack or buy a different one in its class. And so that is the catch. But more companies should be doing this exact thing, right? Even if it's just like, hey, here's 15 of what could be in there. You're going to get 5 of them. That's still better than being like, hey, there's 100 in here and you're going to get 5 of them, right?
Yeah, so it's funny. My nephew was the one that came up to me and was telling me about this story. He's like, it's not like gambling anymore. He's like, you know what you're gonna get, and I was like, maybe there's something like psychological here. Like, if you can get kids, or you could target kids and be like, this pack is hot, and where kids don't normally spend, they beg their parents, be like, this pack is only available for 24 hours, and it's great players. You can get them like that. Who knows? That's my fear. That there's another way to target people that are weak-willed.
Right. They're going with the time-based approach instead of the mystery.
Yeah, but I also think there is an aspect of, if I see the pack and there is somebody I want, I'm going to buy it right then and there instead of wavering, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if they end up getting way more buys out of this system than the previous ones. And EA, I believe it was EA, either EA or Activision, they hired somebody talking data analytics and stuff like that. They hired somebody actually looking at that stuff, who their main job is figuring out how to, bring in the money on these type of things. Yeah. So if they make a move like this, they have the data to back it up that says, okay, 1, this will look better in consumers' eyes, and 2, it's probably going to make us more money.
Could you imagine, like, I don't know if you guys were into Pokemon cards when they first came out in the States, but could you imagine just knowing, like, the shop owner's like, there's a Charizard and it's 100% guaranteed. You would run to your parents and be like, Mom, I need $5. Just give me $5.
I would have left my sneakers on the counter and been like, hey, I need to get my sneakers back because I bought these cards with them. So give me the $5 so I can trade them. There's no way. I wouldn't even let him pit it back before I grabbed it from him.
Yeah.
And so, but
It's
I mean,
cool.
I think
It's cool.
I think it's a cool move.
I think it's a cool move, but I'm actually really more interested in seeing how this affects their sales.
Yeah.
And if there's a way they start, or like if people start reporting like, hey, I'm starting to get really good packs and I'm buying more.
Yeah. No, I mean, we'll know in like 4 months. No, 2 months if this system works or not. Because when they released Madden and they have their Ultimate Team, if they're using the same system, then you know that it's working for them.
Yeah. Very true.
Another bit of interesting news coming out is that Cyberpunk 2077 is returning to the PlayStation Store after being unavailable for more than 180 days. That is, I don't think I realized just how long the game has been out and what a disaster it was, how long it's been. But the game is coming back to the PlayStation Store.
I believe it's out now. Yeah.
But they added a disclaimer or like a caveat.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. The disclaimer saying that you should caution and know that it still doesn't run great on the PlayStation 4. And so they did add that caveat. Could you imagine, like, this is completely unprecedented. And it was already unprecedented when it happened, just them pulling it from the shop like that. But to then also have this disclaimer on it is insane.
Yeah. So it says, important notice, users continue to experience performance issues with this game. Purchase for use on PS4 systems is not recommended. For the best Cyberpunk experience on PlayStation, play on the PS4 Pro and PS5 systems.
Yeah. You know, I am so mad that I bought that game at launch. I have not played it at all because when all those reports were coming out, I decided then and there, like, I'm just going to wait until they actually have a Series X optimized version, right? The next gen optimized version, which obviously those plans got pushed back because they had to fix the current gen ones, or at this point old gen.
I played through the prologue and I also decided to stop because I know that's probably a game that's going to get better over time. And some of those glitches they break the immersion in the game. So
did you play on the PS5 at launch?
I played on the computer.
Oh, you played on PC. Okay.
Yeah.
So I played on PC as well, and I played through the entire game. I did like all the side missions. I didn't do everything on the map, but I got a lot of it done. It was a decent game, but like you said, yeah, there's immersion breaking stuff. There's some really random glitches. The driving was terrible across the board. A lot of the so there's like each area has like a fixer that gives you missions, and all the details for that mission are kept in like text logs, and it was just like, so if you want to know what you're doing for that mission, you have to go and read this giant text log, but most of the time I didn't care to. And the games like Mass Effect, I would go in and read that through that entire thing, but with Cyberpunk, it just didn't work with how they were doing it. But like the main story stuff, the main side characters stuff, that stuff was fantastic. Like some of it was really well written. There's some emotional beats to it, but that game really needed another year in the oven for those systems to come together, for a lot of that to work.
All right, sticking with Sony. Sony is looking for PS5 owners to test out upcoming features. So it looks like in a PlayStation blog, Senior Vice President at PlayStation Platform Experience explained that the company is looking to test changes being made to the PlayStation 5 platform as part of a major system update. Now, it looks like this is going to be similar to the software beta program, and Microsoft already has a program like this. They call it the Xbox Preview program that you can opt into, where they test out features, and they have different rings where if you're alpha ring, you get the builds first, but there's also a chance that there could be a ton of bugs and stuff like that. So it looks like Sony is just doing something similar to test out some of these features coming up, which I think it's cool. I think more companies should do stuff like that. And I actually was enrolled in the preview program for Xbox for the longest time. I actually ended up opting out of it just because it kind of got annoying when I was trying to explain things to friends on how to find certain menus in the system. and then realizing, oh, I can't tell you what to do because I'm a update ahead of you, right? And so, that being said, people looking to opt into this should recognize the fact that there is a chance that it could mess up your system, and that there could be problems. So just be aware of that.
The only reason I would really want to sign up for this is for that, maybe for that ability to pop in extra storage early.
Yeah.
But then I also don't want to be a beta tester for that.
I don't trust them. Listen, I don't trust them at all with that stuff, and so I'm a hard pass. I'll wait until people like you have enrolled.
It has room to intake extra storage, or is it like an external?
Yeah.
storage?
So if you pop off the top of the top case, there's
The side, well,
yeah,
depending on
the
how
left,
you
the
have it,
left,
I guess.
yeah, the left side.
Yeah.
There's actually like I think an M2 slot.
Yeah, there's a bay. and
yeah.
you can unscrew. There's an M2 slot fitted in,
Yeah.
but it's not active yet.
And knowing how much I paid for a 2 terabyte M2 on PC, that was already high end, but still not fast enough for what a PS5 needs.
Yes.
They're not going to be cheap either. It might be almost half the cost, or maybe the cost of a console. It's kind of ridiculous.
It has been pretty frustrating for me actually with the PS5.
Do you
I
have,
have like Modern Warfare on there.
Yeah.
And
that's that's the problem. You have Modern Warfare installed.
Modern
Yeah.
Warfare problem,
No,
yeah.
100%.
They
100%. That game takes up so much.
They need to like redo that game from the ground up. Like I don't know what else they can do at this point, but like base PS4s can't. I think there was a time where they couldn't run that game because they didn't have enough storage.
So one story that I should have included technically in the Xbox section of news that we did is Ninja Theory gave an update on Hellblade 2.
Yes.
Basically, the gist of this update is this game is still a ways out. They have not gone into full production yet, and they seem to be going above and beyond for this game and making it as authentic but also as engaging as possible. And like I said before, I love that first one. So whatever it takes to give us something on par or even bigger and better than that one, I'm all for.
Yeah, and like you know, Ninja Theory have said, I think Tamim Antonitis, the chief creative ninja at Ninja Theory, said, you know, they didn't want to do a straight sequel. We want to do something extra special, and so we're making our lives as difficult as possible in that pursuit. You know, the art and audio teams are out there doing photogrammetry, and combining with satellite data to recreate large swaths of landscapes. They're collaborating with Epic Games to bring you next generation digital characters on the combat front. They want it to be extra real and brutal. I think they're also like scanning in actual outfits. Like they have somebody making an outfit and they're scanning that outfit into the game. I mean, like that first game is like almost photorealistic, and like that trailer they showed at the Xbox Series reveal event, that they said was like in game or in engine. I forget what the actual phrase was. Looked ridiculous. I mean, like we just talked about Cyberpunk. Take your time, do it right, get your vision out, and don't compromise on that.
Next bit of news, Tekken producer confirms the death of Tekken Cross Street Fighter. We all knew this game was dead, right? This isn't a surprise. I mean, it's been more than a decade and we've seen nothing. Now, kind of speaking on it, he did say that, yeah, development stopped and they only got about 30% done. He also stated that the work that was done is kind of what led to them being able to get Akuma in Tekken and get him running on the Tekken engine. So all of that work they did didn't go to complete waste. It was used later.
I mean, if you really want Tekken vs Street Fighter, you just play Smash Brothers now.
No, I mean, the whole point of it was being able to play those characters in that Tekken engine.
Yeah.
I mean, Tekken plays like almost no other fighter out there. And so I was actually more interested in this than I was in that Street Fighter Cross Tekken game that ended up coming out. And so if I go back in time, I wish this one had gotten released and the other one didn't, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
That being said, I mean, this isn't really news. We knew this. Everybody knew this to be the case.
It's just confirmation, you know.
Yeah, and it's nice to just have it said and done.
It's like Metroid Dread where
Right.
they did announce, like, I think years after the fact the game was dead, and if they were to bring it back, they had to redo a lot of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Now another quick story: Overwatch crossplay is now available. Competitive mode, though, still separates PC and console players, and players can opt out of it. I'm actually curious to kind of give this a try and see if I notice a difference playing against PC players. Overwatch isn't one of those games outside of the sniper classes. It's not one of those games where I feel like PC players would have a huge advantage just because of the nature of some of the abilities on some of these characters. And so, any
yeah,
of you guys still play Overwatch? Any interest in
I
giving
I
this a
mean,
shot?
I'm curious if anyone like they really lost. I felt like everyone played Overwatch, and then Battle Royales took over, and
Yeah.
Overwatch did
Right.
nothing to bring people back in. I'm not saying that Overwatch needs a Battle Royale or anything, but it,
Yeah, I think
they were
some of the
they were concentrated on Overwatch League, which is cool.
yes.
But then they skewed to the competitive, which isn't
I
always
also think
fun.
I think part of the problem is just the game modes. It just felt too samey, right? A lot of it,
Yeah.
and so if if you didn't like one game mode in Overwatch, chances are you just didn't like Overwatch. That's the reality of it. And so
Yeah.
I, like I said, I am interested in getting back into it. I've kind of been having the itch with the fact that they announced the Overwatch 2 changes. I started watching a little bit of the Overwatch League recently, and they've just added so many new characters since I last played. So I am tempted, but I think I'm just gonna hold off for Overwatch 2 and see what happens there.
Yeah. It was just like when I did want to get back in, a lot of people were like the community is very toxic now because of
Yeah,
ranked, and
that's
that's
Yeah.
I mean, that's every
yeah.
competitive community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
All
Dota's the
right,
worst.
another story. Another story that doesn't really apply to me. Looks like Sonic is coming to Minecraft in a new pack. Anybody here play Minecraft?
Not really.
I don't. But what's interesting about this is it actually feels like Sonic, like the levels, the character designs. Like
I,
I didn't.
I think, yeah. So I think all the packs that they've done a very good job of making it feel like you're building in that world. Now, this
Yeah.
is probably the best one to date. I agree with you 100%. I mean, it looks like you're in Green. This trailer shows it looks like you're in Green Hill Zone, and the nature of Sonic kind of lends itself to Minecraft as well. When you're talking about something like Green Hill Zone, you know. But I don't know if you ever tried out like the Halo pack that they had for Minecraft, or I think they had a Mass Effect pack as well. And so they tend to do a pretty good job with these packs.
I
These,
al-
these haven't
I
been
always
announced,
wanted to get into Minecraft, but I guess I felt like I was too old by the time it happened. I found a group of these Destiny raiders. They're a bunch of guys out west, in college and whatnot. So I was the old man of the group. And they were sitting there talking about Minecraft. Like, oh, remember when we used to play Minecraft back in high school? And I was like, oh, okay. I feel like
Yeah,
a grandpa.
No, I
Yeah,
had the same
yeah.
exact experience this
Yeah.
past summer too. We're in my Among Us server. A lot of people just started playing Minecraft, and I was like, all right, I've never bothered to learn how to play this game.
Yeah,
It
I mean,
seems
my
fun if
son,
you're together.
yeah, my son plays and he's tried to get me into it. I've played a little bit with him. The problem is I play that game and I just want to mine. Like I don't want to do anything else. I kind of just want to dig as far down as I can,
yeah.
collect as much as I can, and he's over here building railroad stations and working trains and stuff like that. And I'm like, I can't keep up.
Like I want to do
Uh,
that campaign. Like I want to go fight that dragon. That when they added that story mode, that piqued my interest. But then it was just like I don't know what to do, and I'm scared.
That is part of the problem.
Yeah.
And so this Sonic Cross Minecraft DLC is available right now in the Minecraft Marketplace, and it's available for $7.99.
I just checked out the trailer. It looks really good. I'm really impressed. There hasn't been any good Sonic news for probably more than a year up until now. So
Yeah, no, 100%.
Don't give Sonic too much credit there.
The next bit of news I want to talk about is the Pokemon Unite MOBA is coming to Switch next month, mobile later. I completely forgot they had announced a Pokemon MOBA.
I forgot as well.
Yeah.
I
I
think I will check it out for sure, but
Samir,
it seems like a ridiculous concept.
Samir, you want to join our team? It seems like you got that Dota. You have a lot of Dota experience, don't you?
Oh, I do, yeah. I used to play Warlock in Dota, and with that one character, I'd have a 70% win rate.
Oh my
So,
god.
but I sucked at most other heroes, so people are like, "You're only good at that. You're only good at Warlock." I was like, "Yeah, so what? That's what you need."
Listen,
That's all that matters. As long as it's not banned out, you don't need to dodge the queue.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's funny. We have somebody who plays a lot of Dota. We have somebody who played way too much League.
Both of
And
us.
we've
Come
got-
on. Don't.
Yeah, well, you're worse than I am.
Oh yeah.
And then we've got, me and my Smite addiction that
Oh, yeah.
for whatever reason I can't quit. And so maybe it's time for us. Maybe this is the one to unite all forces, right?
There
And
you go.
oh, I didn't even mean to say unite. Ugh, I hate myself now. Anyway, I'm willing to give this a try. It is free to play, right?
I believe so. It's a 5v5, so we need two more. We need two more people for this MOBA addiction.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But this is something that I would definitely be willing to try out on stream. We can play together and do something. See if
Yeah.
I can't find like an Ash outfit to wear.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Alright.
And this is also on mobile, right? Mobile and Switch.
Yes. So Switch is coming first, and then mobile's coming
Okay.
a month later.
Great.
But there's going to be crossplay between them as well.
Yeah.
Now, Netflix and CD Projekt Red are partnering for the Witcher convention in July. This was announced at Netflix's Geek Week. They
Yeah, I don't think we got to talk
Alright,
about it
yeah.
during.
Right, so the event will be called WitcherCon, and it will be hosted by CD Projekt Red and Netflix on July 9th. I mean, I assume that this is mostly going to be them talking about season 2, as well as the animated spin-off movie and a new live-action prequel show called The Witcher: Blood Origin. I'm curious as to what the CD Projekt Red portion of this is going to be.
Witcher 4? Do you think that'll
I
happen?
mean,
Oh, I
I
think they
don't-
said they were continuing.
yes, they already said they were working on the next Witcher game.
Yeah.
That there was a small team or a team working on it as well. My concern, and I just don't know how they come out and talk about Witcher 4 with Cyberpunk still being in the state it's in.
We've created a new team.
Yeah, no, this is gonna be very interesting. I can already see the comments being like, "Hey, that's great. Fix the other game."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe it just Witcher has the fan base where they don't care. They're just excited. They'll view Cyberpunk as them misstepping and moving away from Witcher and when they should have just done another Witcher. And who knows? I know that there's some people who are still very big CD Projekt Red fans. I have a friend who played Cyberpunk on the Xbox Series X and said that he didn't have quite the numerous problems that other people had, and he had a good experience, and he thought it was a very, very good game. So I'm more interested. I think I'm more interested not in what they announce, but the reaction to whatever they announce is.
I think that they're really trying to recover from the Cyberpunk news, so I think that they'll be looking to announce some stuff ahead of time. I know one thing that they promised, and we haven't heard a lot of news about recently, is updates for The Witcher on PS5 and Xbox
yeah.
Series X. So I don't know if that deserves a whole convention, but I definitely think there's news about that coming soon.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that update for next gen consoles. That's due out, I think, later this year. As well.
Second half of 2021.
Yeah. That will, yeah. Honestly, out of this WitcherCon, I'm actually more excited for season 2 of The Witcher. That first season took a little bit to get to hit its stride, but once it did, it was a lot of fun. And I'm really curious to see where season 2 goes. And just like the Henry Cavill love that the internet has for him, it's just
Yeah.
I hope in a year or two there's nothing that ever like in the future nothing ever comes out about him that like he's terrible, he yelled at people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he's just too good.
All right. So the last bit of news we have, in the news that outside of Design Lab being back, this is the one I'm second most or equally excited for, is EA Motive is reportedly set to reveal a dormant IP revival at EA Play. We talked about this before our E3 podcast, and maybe even at our E3 podcast, how EA wasn't necessarily partaking in the E3 festivities, and they were going to have their event a month later in July. So it looks like we're going to have this, sounds like we're going to have this reveal next month, and all rumors are pointing towards it being a revival of the Dead Space franchise.
Yes.
Yeah.
100% yes.
Please. I have been talking with one of my friends about Dead Space and trying to get him to play the games because they're all available on Xbox Game Pass Ultimate as part of EA Play. He's a huge Resident Evil fan, huge survival horror fan, and he's never played any of the Dead Space. And in my opinion, granted, 3 fell off a bit, but those first 2 are some of the best survival horror games ever made, and ones that I would be super excited to play again, even if this just becomes an announcement of, hey, we're remastering the 3 games. If they said they're remastering the 3 games and they're out this year, I'm playing all 3 games, and I'll play all 3 on stream as part of the horror game night that I want to do. If they announce a new entry in the franchise, I think I'll lose it. I think that would be a top 3 summer announcement for me, including all the stuff we got at E3.
I feel like I heard it's a new entry. I don't think it's a continuation of 3, but it's kind of like, it might not even be a reboot itself. It's just like another entry into Dead Space.
I mean, the reality is, for those people who are into Dead Space and even went beyond the lore in the games, I read 2 books in that were released as part of the
did not know they had books.
Yes, and so the whole idea behind the markers and them being located on different planets, stuff like that, just, you can have games that don't feature Isaac. Now, don't get me wrong, everybody loves Isaac, right? But the universe and just the concept of the markers and the necromorphs, that's what they're called, right? And it's necromorphs?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's just so much that can be done with this, and they could absolutely bring out a new entry, a set somewhere else. And they did do, that's part of the problem, I think. What happened is they did do some outside entries. They had like a light gun shooter and I think a kind of like Telltale choose your own adventure type game released as well that weren't as good as the mainline series. And obviously, I think the mistake they made in 3 is kind of they took the wrong lessons from like Mass Effect, where Mass Effect got more actiony as it went on, but still did it well. I think Dead Space kind of went too actiony in 3, and it stopped being survival horror and just turned into a full-on action game.
Yeah, and like and then 3, it was like that era of EA microtransactions as well. There was that crafting system, and hey, you could buy buy your resources and then upgrade your weapons and become more powerful. Like, that stuff was annoying. I didn't think it needed crafting as well. The co-op was nice. I think one of my favorite things to do with my buddy Will, we never did finish this game in co-op, was if you climbed up the ladder and you just stayed on the ladder, your partner couldn't go up. So if there was a monster chasing you, you could just have him like freak out. It was a great time. I wouldn't mind if they brought back a Dead Space co-op. But actually,
I think if they bring it back, they have to do it right.
Yeah.
There are games, and I talked about the Dark Pictures anthology games. There are games that do co-op horror, and they do it well.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that for the most part, just because that game wasn't much of a horror game, in my opinion, that it wasn't scary for either side, you know? And so I think they can bring co-op back as long as they still bring the tension that you expect in a survival horror. I think it could be done right, and I would much rather play games with friends than play them solo. That's just the type of person I am. And so I would love to play something like this, especially if they do it so that we are experiencing different things, which they did in the co-op for Dead Space 3. Because there's nothing funnier to me than somebody getting scared in your party chat and screaming, and then you getting startled by it from them screaming and just asking them like what happened and stuff like that. Like I always get a huge laugh out of that. And stuff like that kind of happens actually when we play Dead by Daylight, which is I think one of the reasons I love that game so much. Is you'll be off in a corner of the map working on your generator or your objective, and then all of a sudden hear somebody scream a high-pitched yell because they're getting chased and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I would love for them to bring co-op back as well, as long as it sticks to its survival horror roots and focuses on that first.
Yeah. So according to Metro, 2 more sources have corroborated information with Eurogamer, claiming they also heard the series is coming back via EA Motive. Gamatsu agrees, but adds that the game will be a reimagining rather than a direct sequel to the original games.
And I'm fine with that, right? You could honestly reboot this and you can bring Isaac back again if you want, and just tell a different story with him on a different location, but still have the core of the markers. You can have slightly different character design and necromorphs. Like, I think as long as the core gameplay is there and the idea of strategically shooting the limbs off, because that's what separates it more than anything else from these other survival horror games. And it's something that felt great and was super satisfying in the gameplay. One of the things we were talking about is the one thing that Dead Space always did, which is something that games do less of these days, is you always knew when you were about to encounter a boss, because just by happen chance there was a decent amount of ammo right outside of a door that you were about to go in. So it was one of those things where you would see that ammo and you would go, oh no, let me just take a step, let me breathe before I go in and take care of this. And so I'm very, very excited. I hope this pans out. I hope this isn't something else. Like at this point, this has to be this, or else I'm going to be very upset. And which is my own fault, right?
Yeah.
But
I don't remember too much. And like, there's not much they need to do. Like, the blueprint is there. You have 2 solid games, 3 kind of. This should be an easy home run for EA. Like, if they mess this up, they really need to reevaluate what they're doing. For me, if it's a reimagining and not a sequel, great, because I don't remember too much about the story or the characters at this point. It's been almost 15 plus years since that first one. You're shaking your head.
Yeah, it has been a while. I mean, I don't know how you forget about Isaac Clarke, how you forget about the markers, how you forget about...
I know that. I know Clarke.
Needle
yes.
into his eye.
So those are the 3 things I know. There's Isaac Clarke, there's the marker, and then in the beginning of Dead Space 2, there's that giant needle that scarred me for life.
I think it's towards the end of Dead Space 2, but yes, it's in Dead Space 2.
No, I thought it was the beginning.
His wife.
I don't remember anything about his wife.
Oh, that was like the whole point of the first... That's like the... was
on the ship.
Yeah.
There's an abandoned ship with a marker on it. Yeah.
He's trying to find
maybe that's our series, or that spooky game.
Listen, I will play through that series again, honestly. We might have to... Well, we could play 3 co-op, I guess.
Yeah.
But
I don't mind sitting along and screaming.
And I think that wraps up the news for this week, right? There's nothing else. I didn't miss anything.
No, I mean, that was
more talk about those blue box, but I want to wait and see what actually happens with that.
Blue box?
Yeah, the
abandoned?
Hideo Kojima.
Oh,
abandoned.
It was a book. It was a Hideo Kojima book at the end of the day.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see, because that app release? I thought that app was releasing tomorrow.
I don't think it's an actual Kojima game. I think Kotaku had a good write-up on it. I'll see.
Anyway, I don't even want to talk about it.
We'll talk about it next week.
I am not a fan of that kind of stuff. We can talk about it next week. I'm not a fan of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Honestly.
They also deleted their tweet, but what a terrible tweet.
But yeah, I think that about wraps it up. What was I say? Oh, Samir, you want to tell people where they can follow you, where they can find you?
Sure. I mean, I am streaming on Twitch at Samurai X, spelled Samir, UYEX. Haven't been streaming lately, but I'll get back on it. Um, and then I have a Twitter Samurai. Not too much gaming stuff on there, but feel free to give me a follow.
Bilal, where can people follow you and follow the site?
You guys can follow me over on Twitter at Bilal_Mian and Night Mystic on Twitch. You guys can follow the site at The Workprint on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram. I might be missing one. YouTube? Yeah, YouTube. There you go. Give us a follow. And Rob, do you want to do the pitching for Twitch as well with your stuff?
Yeah. So, as always, you can follow me at SunnyVice20, SUNNYVICE20. That's Twitter, my Twitch channel, Instagram. I'm pretty much everywhere. We'll see if I ever end up on TikTok. But the one thing I do want to say is thank you so much to everybody who's been coming out, watching the podcast stream, who came and watched me play the games demo event. Yeah, that came out of Gamescast on Xbox and stuff like that. We had such a big turnout for us. And we've gotten so much support that the channel itself has reached affiliate status, which means that we can now actually make some money on this channel by way of subscriptions and bits, etc. And this is kind of a big deal. I think Bilal and I were talking about this, and I was talking to my wife about this. I've wanted that dumb subscribe button for like 12 years. So, granted, this is the first time I think that at least the two of us together have actually put in the work and put in the effort and decided that we're going to go for it, right? We're going to, one, do it because we want to do it and we love doing it. But two, if we're going to do it, we want to do it right. And so you should expect us to be streaming more often and trying to get more content on the channel. We're still kind of working out what it is we want to do, because again, we want to do it right and we want to try to have some fun at the same time. And so if you do have, just a heads up, if you do have Amazon Prime and you link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account, you do get Prime Gaming, which gives you one free subscription to any channel on Twitch, ours or anybody else's. We'd love it if you used it here. If not, just wanted to let you know that you do have that option. And so, again, thank you guys so much. If you're watching the stream, you can see the giant smile on my face. If you're listening to the podcast, I'm sure you can hear the smile on my face. This was a big deal, and I think we were kind of shocked when we got that email.
We weren't even expecting it that morning. It came through. I think Rob didn't even believe me when I first said it. And like, look, I know these streams can go long, but for family and friends that do tune in and join and comment and have conversations, it means a lot to us. And so,
Yeah.
we appreciate you guys. Put us on in the background. You might even my wife throws it on her phone and is just like, sometimes I listen, sometimes watching TV. I'll check in and see what you guys are talking about. As long as it's not the parts where I'm talking about buying something expensive that she's not aware of, I'm happy.
Yeah. And listen, honestly, if you're interested in supporting us in any way, the best way to support us is to just tell other people that you think might be interested about the channel and about the podcast.
Yeah.
And again,
and
thank you so much.
Thank you guys. The podcast, Apple Podcast feed, Spotify, leave comments, rate it. Helps with the visibility of it over time. So just search The Workprint on either Spotify under podcasts or on the Apple app. I think we're on Google Play. I have to double check that. It's been a while.
Yeah. I think we're pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
Thank you, Samir, for being on the show. I always feel bad when we have guests sometimes when there's a ton of news stories like what we just went through this past week, because it ends up being a lot of me talking, Bilal talking, me trying to move Bilal along and him ignoring me, trying to move him along.
Thank you for having me. Honestly, it's an honor. So
Yeah, and you're more than welcome back at any time, and we should do something, especially since you are streaming as well on Twitch, we should try to do something where maybe we play something together on our respective channels and stuff like that.
Yeah, I love that.
And so,
Well, if you're getting Mario Golf, we might have might have something for you coming up.
Yeah.
all right. And until next time.
Bye bye.